welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the iHeart Radio Network, the number one network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the number one sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. And of course, Big C, you know we love Canada, but there's still no one I love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free, in the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for all of you good old boys down south? Yeah. Well, sometimes they say you got to shower when you leave Bourbon Street, but you know it's all fair and love and war. And also Bourbon Street, nobody tells, were you able to get back on the plane with all those extra beads you had in your bags, Big C?
My shirt comes up automatically.
Yeah.
I was trying to tell people I wasn't flashing them in the I'm trying to pull the shirt back down.
Yeah, that's funny. We know that's the truth, and oftentimes when you got a sexy body, people are gonna stare, but that's their problem, Big C. Today is a beautiful August the 1st, 2017, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. So many things going on in the world of sports, and obviously, politics too. So many things happening. But I just want to finish up what we talked about yesterday with the Major League Baseball trade deadline. It coming past on yesterday, and the Dodgers got a good pitcher out of Texas, but Darvish his ERA is only 4.01. He had 148 strikeouts, Big C. His one-loss record, he's only 6-9. So he looks good based on his history, but did they get him on the downswing of his career, Big C? Your thoughts? Yeah.
He doesn't want to go somewhere. He can do what he wants to do on the mound. You have to understand, players have a lot of control. It's always been talked about in sports about where the players are tanking it or whether they're doing something intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah.
Even the commissioner in football, your buddy Roger Goodell, was talking about NFL teams, trying to get a high draft pick. We've seen that in the NBA where teams are saying basically, I know Mark Cuban said it last year that he was going to tank it. And he's not in Texas where Hugh Garbage came from. So was Hugh Garbage tanking it so that he didn't have to uproot his family from Texas to fight the freeways in L.A.?
Well, Big C, that's a very good point to make. I want to say today's segment is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them that Charlton and Big C sent you. Big C, another point I want to bring up. We talked about the Hall of Fame and the people who were inducted into the Hall of Fame and kind of a who's who. And I really think when you think about it, the Hall of Fame, whether it's Jeff Bagwell, Ivan Rodriguez, Tim Raines, and also Andre Dawson was mentioned a lot in one of the speeches given by Tim Raines. He actually named his son after him. But I just want to touch on one more thing with Bud Selig and also this thing called integrity. You have Commissioner of the NFL, Goodell, talking about teams that may tank a season just so they can get a number one pick. I think you've already covered teams that get number one picks are not necessarily Super Bowl contenders. Look at what New England does. Do you think that league-wide across all the sports, is that an issue? Because we talk about gambling and everything else. Is that an issue where guys, what they call tanking? Could that just be a Las Vegas special? Does that make any sense? But the commissioner's talking about it, Big C? The commissioner's thinking it too?
Even the great Paul Hornung, Hall of Fame running back, former Notre Dame player, Green Bay Packer, was suspended from football for gambling on the ball, on football.
Yeah.
He's in the Hall of Fame, and Pete Rose is not. And Paul Hornung did it while he was an active player in the NFL, active gambling. So if you're gambling as a player, then that means that you're taking games. You're setting up games to not cover the spread.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what Paul Hornung did as a player. So I think about all those sports writers who want to lambaste Pete Rose about what he did as gambling, which is basically like tanking the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
synonymous with each other.
Yeah.
Okay? So we have people in the NFL Hall of Fame. Like I said, the NFL is a league that wants criminals. All right?
Yep.
If you're not a criminal, you may have a problem getting in the NFL. So Paul Warning, leads a list of criminals in the Hall of Fame. So we not just have them as players, but we have them as Hall of Famers in the NFL. So, people want to talk about, tanking games to get high-round draft picks.
Yeah.
That's fixing a game, Joe. I don't care how you look at it.
I was going to say the same thing, Big C.
You get commissioners that are knowledgeable about
Yeah.
this, okay?
Yeah.
Bud Selig kept Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame because he said he betted on baseball. Pete Rozelle did not keep Paul Hornung out of the NFL Hall of Fame, and he had been suspended for betting and gambling on games as an active player.
Yeah.
So there's a different set of rules between who gets where, who's liked where. So we've seen this tanking in baseball, we've seen it tanking in basketball, because Mark Cuban spoke about it freely last season, Joe.
Yeah.
And you've always wondered about the Philadelphia 76ers. Are they that bad? Are they that bad? One of the two. It's not that they're just taking it that bad and that stupid of an organization.
Well,
But we see this all over the place in all professional leagues. But now, how can you tank for a quarterback? Sam Donald
Yeah.
is not going to be a safety in the NFL. As much as people want to talk about how he played last season and lit up the Rose Bowl, we've seen that every year from some quarterback going out, lighting it up for 400 or 500 yards.
yeah.
But tell me how many of those guys have gone to Super Bowls? When you look at the ledger of Super Bowl quarterbacks, Charlton, he hasn't been the number one overall draft pick in the NFL. It doesn't get there. Joe Namath got lucky.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah.
That was it. Jim Plunkett got lucky.
Yeah.
Okay? But these guys were ladder on, especially Jim Plunkett. He had to go to 3 teams to get to that point.
Yeah.
But you don't look on the list and say, okay, this is the guy that's the number one overall draft pick. John Elway lost 3 times before he won.
Blowout losses, too, Big C. Blowout losses.
Blowout losses. So when you sit there thinking that the number one draft pick is going to get me to a Super Bowl, look at the last 5 number one draft picks as quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
Tell me when the last time they made playoffs, Charles.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Big C. So we know it's just, I think commissioners, sometimes they're so relaxed because they drink that smooth thing that you guys drink down south, Big C, and they get on TV. Well, when the commissioner, Goodell talked about taking the NFL to a $27 billion industry by the time the Olympics get here in Los Angeles in 2028. And I think they really got to be careful when they talk about guys that may bet on sports, and then that tanking is a euphemism for betting on the game. Some guys will go out and take that, whatever they get from Las Vegas or wherever their friends are. We know more money's made outside of Vegas than in Vegas. And so when someone's tanking, are they tanking or are they really wagering with some good old boys? And I think the commissioner needs to be careful when he talks like that, Big C. Your thoughts? Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
People want to say everybody's on the up and up. Everybody's got their hand up looking to see what they can get.
That's what the up and up means.
That's not, it's no different than a waiter or a waitress at a restaurant. The hand is up.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm taking care of you. Now you take care of me.
Yep.
So that's the same thing we look at in athletics.
Yeah.
I'm taking care of you. So, and when you're talking about tanking a game, Charlton, they want that up front.
Yeah.
That money guaranteed the game has to happen.
Now, Big C, Big C, I feel like I'm talking to the Trump administration. I don't want to ask you how you know that information, but I'll just let you. You've been in the game long enough. I'll just leave that. Okay, I understand. Another great guy, Sonny Gray, from the A's to the Yankees. The A's, I mean, you think about how great this organization used to be. Billy Beanball, they called it back in the day. They were in the World Series almost all the time. Had one against the Dodgers and also against the Giants. One of the only teams that when they play the World Series, it usually is against a team from their own state. But now they're just a shell of themselves. But Gray's a good pitcher, 3.43 ERA, 94 strikeouts. His win and loss record is 6-5, but that's pretty good coming from the Oakland A's. The Yankees look like they're building for next year, not for this year. Big C, your thoughts?
in the East. They're a little different slate than what the Dodgers are. The Dodgers are just trying to secure a World Series.
Yeah.
The Yankees are trying to make a wild card run. And the rich teams in baseball, the big market teams in baseball, often do this every year at the trade deadline. They bring in players hoping to get that kick in the lineup that will give them that surge to win, to go on a winning streak. The teams that are in the small markets,
yeah.
they're never bringing in veteran players. They always trading up prospects. You talked about the ones around Oakland A's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they had the veteran players who could deliver, where they would make World Series runs. Now, everybody's trading for prospects. The old analogy in baseball used to be that you didn't trade your top prospects to a team for a veteran player that you were only going to get for the rest of that season, maybe one more season.
Yeah.
It's all about winning now. No one cares about what's going to happen with an organization in 5 years. That's totally irrelevant. Sports is about now, the instant, the moment. Professional sports has to be now, retroactive. You have to go back to where you didn't win and start winning from that point.
Yeah.
You can't say, okay, I got these top prospects, and we're expecting within 3 to 5 years for these guys to be the stars of our franchise. Nobody's sitting home right up to the team and say, okay, you guys right now in baseball, you're 32 and 67.
Yeah.
We know in 3 years we're going to have a solid organization because you got some great young talent in the farm system. But I'm paying premium price right now for a major league ticket.
Yeah.
And you're telling me I have to wait on the farm league guys. So why don't you charge me farm league prices right now in a major league?
Because that makes too much sense. That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Well, when you think about that, out here in Oakland, and again, watching the Coliseum area, the dirt has championship rings with the Warriors and also the A's and the Raiders playing all on that same landfill, that same block, Big C. And I think about the A's and how they just gutted their organization. I think about Eckersley back in the day, throwing balls that no one could hit, Dave Stewart. You think about Reggie Jackson played here. Canseco played here. You have McGuire played here. And then Ricky Henderson, whenever he was on first base, he and Barry Bonds were must-see TV, no matter what you were doing, washing dishes, cooking up moonshine. When Ricky Henderson got to the plate, you wanted to see him get on first base. People were more excited to watch Ricky Henderson on first base than in the batter's box because you knew he was going to steal the base. And you knew that he was going to take the pitcher out of his game. You don't have that kind of excitement around here anymore, Big C, because they're always trying to get rid of the star players. Can you tell me why that's the case in Oakland, Big C? Your thoughts? Yeah.
In the early 80s. But now that's a bygone era. And they haven't done anything to upgrade the organization, haven't done anything to upgrade the stadium. Well, when you look around the nation, Charlton, and you see where many facilities for their team, where they built their stadiums,
yeah.
They built fan-friendly confines. That's what you have to do to stay competitive. When the Giants upgraded their facility from, what was it, Candlestick Park down to Pac Bell Park downtown,
yeah.
They upgraded their facility. It was much-see baseball. It was much easier access for city transportation versus where you had to go way out on a point. It was cold and frigid. They made it friendly for the business executive, Charlton, to walk to the park and commute to the park.
Yeah.
That's what you have to do nowadays. You have to accommodate people. It's like I'm down in New Orleans a couple days.
Yeah.
And you look at the stadium in New Orleans, which is right downtown, the Superdome, Mercedes Superdome, right downtown. Yet I was in Florida, last month.
Yeah.
And I'm down there and the hockey, the soccer event.
Yeah.
And that stadium's way out in the middle of
That's like Fort Lauderdale where they put that stadium.
Fort Lauderdale, what used to be Joe Robbie, where you think about the old Orange Bowl where the Dolphins used to play, is where the Marlins play baseball
Yeah.
now, right downtown Miami.
Yeah.
They took this thing out to Fort Lauderdale, which is 25 miles away.
Yeah.
And so that that's not fan friendly anymore. You're no longer on city transit where you can get to it. And so until you upgrade your accommodations for your fans, and you go around and you look at most new NFL stadiums, newer NFL stadiums, they're right in the heart of town, Jonathan, where it's fan accessible, it's city transit accessible.
Yeah.
A lot of them have the transit systems ride right in when they have the monorail systems in those cities, Jonathan, come right into the stadium.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, Big C, and that's what they're doing in Sacramento. They put the Golden One Center downtown, where it used to be out by the airport and the old Arco Arena sleep train, and now you have the same thing happening. The Chase Center going from Oakland, going to be over in San Francisco, just about 4 blocks south of AT&T Park where the Giants play. So obviously, it's happening all over the country. Atlanta has a gorgeous stadium. At least Atlanta did like Houston. They built their stadium in the same ballpark, in the same parking lot right across from the old stadium. I think down there, Reliant Stadium in Houston, they built it right across from the Astrodome, the 8th wonder of the world. In Atlanta, right across from Georgia Dome, they have the new Mercedes-Benz Dome, which I think is going to be the most remarkable, most beautiful, enjoyable stadium to watch in the country. If you've been down to see that one, that's really a must-see sight. Only hope the Falcons can live up to what they did last year. Want to bring up one more guy in the world of baseball. The Twins get Brandon Kaiser they sent him over to the Nationals. Dusty Baker has a good team on hand, but Kaiser comes in at 2.78 ERA with 28 saves. Now, Dusty obviously has been at the forefront of a lot of good teams when he was out here in San Francisco, had the Giants in the World Series against the Anaheim Angels, and he had the lead going into the 7th inning, and he pulled his pitcher, and it kind of went downhill from there. Is this a year for the Nationals to get to the World Series, but they would have to go through the Dodgers, which are hot, and the Cubs are also playing good baseball? Big C, your thoughts? Yeah.
It's a solid organization this year. They brought in a few more arms here at the trade deadline, which will help strengthen their starting lineup. So this is a team that really be regular. Their bullpen has been solid all year.
Yeah.
And their bats are really hitting. I mean, up and down the lineup, you don't know who. You got to poison right now with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But, you talk about the Cubs. They had that hangover for the first half of the season. They're above 500 now.
Yeah.
And you think about it in baseball, if you play 600 baseball, Jonathan, you normally win your division. So the Cubs are on pace right now to win 90 games. They win 90 games, they can win their division.
Yeah.
The Cardinals are down this year, Jonathan. So that's their true challenge. And so when you look at where they are and what they potentially can do, you're talking about getting into a playoffs that's going to be exciting come October.
Yeah.
But, baseball is what is the crescendo that you build up to. Any team, if you go on a 6-7 game winning streak, Jonathan, you close the gap in any division. And that's what baseball can do. We saw the Dodgers with a 9-10 game winning streak last month.
Yeah.
And they pulled on separation within their division.
Well,
You talk about the Nationals. This is a team that everybody keeps waiting on to get to that point. Dusty Baker's been a tremendous manager. You got strong arms in the starting lineup.
Yeah.
You got these big bats. You got a guy you're trying to get $400 million to. This is the year. I think if the Nationals don't get there this year, you might see them breaking up the band in Washington, Jones.
Well, obviously they're a very good team. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is the foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every industry, you need sporting events, insurance, and athletic insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century, and they work with Big C Sports in all 50 states. They cover professional athletes, your college athletes, your high school players, even your mom and pop soccer leagues. They got you covered. And if you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you. Big C, I want to touch on a few more things, and I know it's hard to talk about anything without you peeking around the corner at college football, you and Nick Saban, all you good old boys from down south. But they won't let go of the Hugh Freeze story as if he's done anything that, it's the oldest business in the world. I won't really go into it, but they're spending so much time on him when probably a lot of their alumni and the people who run their institutions might be more at fault than him because he just happened to be a high-profile player, but that industry does not exist by one football coach alone. As we go up north, I want to touch on your friend, Notre Dame football. Brian Kelly, not really having a great season at Notre Dame last year at 4-8. Some injuries, of course, in 2016. But this is a great institution. You talk about Ara Parseghian, the great Lou Holtz, and Tyrone Willingham. They've had some great coaches. Charlie Wise got the benefit of having some of Willingham's players and led them on to some good seasons, Big C. Is Notre Dame make the playoffs or bust for Kelly this year, Big C? Your thoughts? Yeah.
You know, a 4-win season for Notre Dame is not what touchdown Jesus wants to see.
Yeah.
So Kelly's going to have to go at least a 9-win season to keep his job at Notre Dame because there's a lot of turmoil there, you know, on campus. And, you know, when you're the ringleader, they talk about lack of institutional control.
Yeah.
And so he's had some problems the last couple of seasons. He's had a lot of players that have been suspended, Charles.
Yeah.
And that is the number one thing that they always try to brush under the rug at a high-profile university, the suspension of players. And so that's really weighing on his back right now, is that he's been losing. He's had a lot of academic involvement.
Yeah. Yep.
And so this is a big break for him. He doesn't have to make the playoffs. But if he doesn't win nine games, he's got to change his area code.
Well, touchdown Jesus, you would think that would give them an advantage. I think one of the better games I ever saw at Notre Dame, there's 2 of them. Actually, 3 of them. I think when USC went in there and they had the Bush push and they were trying to snap USC's record-breaking win streak, and USC won it with, I guess, Reggie Bush kind of fell forward and he bumped into Matt Leinart, and Matt Leinart fumbled, stumbled into the end zone, and they won that game. But before that, he hit Dwayne Garrett on about a 50-yard pass that ran down inside the red zone. That was a great game, went down to the wire. Also, they had a game against Miami, which many people thought Miami won that game. The great Lou Holtz had a lot of things go his way with the touchdown Jesus. They also had a great win with Florida against Florida State, and they have had some great teams come into Notre Dame, but they need that type of excitement in order to get the fan base to stand behind Kelly. I think you're right. I do want to touch a little bit, Big C, on some news in the NFL, which is the king of all leagues, Big C. Cam Chancellor signs a 3-year deal with the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, they need Chancellor in that secondary because there is no beast mode there running the ball on offense, and they can use all the help they could get on the offensive side of the ball. Are you still hyped over Seattle and what Pete Carroll has done with his magic working in the great Northwest, Big C? Yeah.
Normally everybody wants to place the money in the defensive line with a pass rusher, the linebacker role, a tremendous linebacker. But Seattle has done something different. Their top 3 players on defense are in the secondary. Chancellor, Thomas, Sherman. You know, they dedicated 25% of their payroll.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think about salary cap numbers. These players have to come out and have monster seasons. Because Seattle has some weaknesses in other places, especially on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson is healthy coming back, but this offensive line is going to have to be much better. They got to develop a solid running game. But to put that much money in the secondary, Chalk, is unheard of in the NFL.
Yeah.
In Seattle, Pete Carroll's been a genius since he's been in Seattle.
He's amazing.
Look at his record, making the playoffs, not having losing seasons. So he knows something about what he's doing coaching. You know, he's not the Pete Carroll that was in New England and New York.
Yeah. Big C, when you say that, what makes him not the same Pete Carroll? Because from New York, he went to USC, turned USC around, won a couple of national championships, and when they did not win a national championship, it seemed like they were 12-1, and they were kept out of the national championship in the game that I thought the whole country wanted to see, which was Florida with Tim Tebow, and then USC. USC lost the game at Oregon State, and Florida had dropped the game. I believe they had dropped one to Alabama or Georgia, one of those two, but they had Florida placed against Oklahoma in the national championship game, when I think most people throughout the country thought that USC going up against Florida would have been a better game. I think that was a 2000 and right around 7 or 8 season, Big C. But I want to ask you, what does he learn from the NFL to college and then back to the NFL? Because he seems to be, outside of Belichick, the best coach in football, Big C.
Everybody talks about being in the right place at the right time. Maturity has a lot to do with that also. Having a different understanding and perspective. When you walk into something and you're given the keys to the car,
Yeah.
you always figure that it belongs to you, okay?
Yeah.
And you don't have to listen to anybody. And a lot of times you get coaches that are immature. I'm not just talking about their age, but I'm just talking about their thought process.
Yeah.
Because they're not willing to delegate responsibility elsewhere. It's my house. I want to control everything like the president.
Yeah. Yeah.
The mindset that so many of these coaches have when they come in, and they find themselves without a job in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Time too against the law.
Yeah.
But when you go back
Yeah.
If you're the best person on your coaching staff and the head coach, you're generally running a losing organization.
Yeah.
The best people on your coaching staff have to be your assistants because they're the ones who are dictating what the players are going to do at practice and in the game. You're just there as a CEO. They're coming to you with the final spreadsheet. That's what your assistant coaches do. So you walk along the sideline look pretty while they're doing the dirty work all the time.
Yeah.
And Pete Carroll learned that, Charlton.
Yeah.
That I can't do it all. So I need some people out here that's more intelligent than me. I'll take all the flack, win or lose.
Yeah.
But I need these intelligent people to make my players better.
Yeah.
And that's what Pete Carroll learned as a head coach after losing in the pros with the Jets and the Patriots, and he went to USC. If you look at the coaching staff that he had when he was at USC, he hired the most intelligent people that were available.
Yeah.
Several of them went on to become head coaches, John.
Yeah.
That's how intelligent they were. And not just head coaches, but they went on to become coordinators also.
Yeah.
In other organizations, position coaches did.
Yeah.
So Pete Carroll surrounded himself with intelligence. And you look at his staff that he's had in Seattle. Half of that staff has gone, and both of his coordinators have gone on to become NFL head coaches.
Yeah.
And participate in Super Bowls, Charlton.
That's a good point.
That's what you do when you surround yourself with people that are more intelligent than you as a head coach. Like I said, you'll take the flack, you'll get the credit. But when you have these people that are more intelligent, you look at Nick Saban.
Yeah.
In college, I mean, pro college ball.
Yeah, I think you guys play a pro version of semi-pro ball down at Bama.
He is the highest paid assistant coaches in all of that semi-pro that they play in Alabama.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what he's done is surrounded himself with intelligent people.
Yeah.
Half of those guys have gone on to become head coaches in other universities. That's why that intelligence pays off and makes you successful as a head coach.
Big C, I tell you, Big C, there's something else I just want to bring up too, and we're going to close with the story that we touched on yesterday. And I mean, I'm not saying it's us, but I'm saying it's all over the news today. We talked about it yesterday, opening the show. Today, Cam Newton didn't have the passing drills. They want to take it slow with him. Is that something to be maybe concerned about, or just being cautious? Big C, your thoughts? Yeah.
You still got another 30 days of
Yeah.
no concerns. I mean, everything that you hear about a player right now comes from somebody in the media telling you what an organization should and should not do, okay?
Yeah.
They have no insight. They're just building a story. The first guy to run with it. There's nobody in training camp right now, Chauncey, going full tilt every day. There's no quarterback, there's no receiver, there's no running back, no defensive tackle going full tilt every day. You're out there right now mainly without pads on, okay?
Yeah.
So you're getting a feel out and timing of what's going on. So to sit there and make something some big deal out of a quarterback not throwing the ball more than 20 yards down the field, that's nothing because the season. He's going to have to put the ball in the air over 400 times.
Yeah.
So what about the refs in training camp? Bare meaningless. You got 5 quarterbacks on everybody's roster in training camp out there tossing footballs around, okay? You got some guys that are going to get some time in the preseason. That's all that's relevant.
Yeah.
You're not worried about your starter. What can he do in the first, second, third week of preseason? Game 4 of the preseason, you want to know where he is physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Because now the real bullets will be flying the following week. So I think nothing of a quarterback, a running back, or anything else that's being held out in training camp. Le'Veon Bell hasn't even showed up.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that?
Yeah.
Hasn't even showed up to training camp.
Yeah.
And they're talking about Cam Newton not being able to throw the ball.
That's a-
Andrew Luck hasn't even picked up a football.
Yeah.
That's no big deal.
That's a very good point, Big C. Out here on the West Coast, the team AFC, looking at the AFC West champions, at least their position for the Oakland Raiders, Khalil Mack. I remember you telling me about Khalil Mack when he played at Buffalo. I never even heard of him until I saw him play a game against Ohio State at the Horseshoe, and he was dominant. 15 career sacks in 2005. That's his career high. He's aiming to try to break the record. Strahan leads the NFL with a 22.5 set back in 2001. Obviously, when you look at Khalil Mack, a guy that just has a motor that doesn't stop, as long as the Raiders have some help on that defense, and they do, it's still, I just wonder how their defense is not as prepared as their offense to win a championship. But he's the guy that got to get double teamed. Can he get to Strahan's record, or is it just talk? Big C, your thoughts? Yeah, Von Miller.
Eric Thomas was close during his lifetime.
Yeah.
Records are meant to be broken. They can be set up like Trey, he was set up to break the record against Brett Favre.
Yeah.
But, record team to have a record and you lose it.
Yeah.
So many players over the years in the NFL have these great records. But in the end, they have a record, they have no ring. But that's the ultimate prize, maybe successful. But let me get a ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what does that really mean in the end? And so, yes, he can get the record.
Yeah.
But what does he have to show with that record, Charles? That's what we're down to.
Well, Big C, that's a very good point. So obviously everybody has to aim high. I do want to close with this. Yesterday, we opened the show by saying that in the United States of America, this is not in counting Canada and South America and Russia and Europe and all the countries around the world. A $31 billion worth of cannabis is sold in the United States in 2016. Of that, $25 billion was sold illegally. Who counted the illegal sales, Big C? I still want to know that person's job. Now, we talked about that and how you talked about some of the players back in the day, they're hooked on different things. Now, opiates, I think there's 100 deaths every day in the United States from opioid, and that's prescribed by doctors. That's incredible. But just after we opened the show yesterday, we opened it yesterday on the last day of July. Today is the 1st of August. I'm looking right now at some studies that I've seen. Marijuana study. The NFL has written, the National Football League. Okay, the NFL has written the National Football League, the Players Association, to work in tandem to study the potential use of marijuana and the pain arguments for players, how it is healthier for them than the opioids that they have. Big C, we just talked about it yesterday. It's all over the paper today. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, anybody in society should always take a look. Because if there's anything that will get rid of chronic pain in people, then it should be looked at in a very in-depth study.
Yeah.
I mean, we understand that opiates have always been there because opiates make a certain level of people money.
Yeah.
Because it has to be manufactured generally. Yes, there's a natural opiate, but there's also the synthetic, which companies are making plenty of money off of it. You talked about the 100+ deaths a day in America.
Every day.
Because they prescribe. Yes, Roger Goodell joined in and passed with the NFL Players Association in examining the use of marijuana in the NFL because he suspended so many players for the use of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about this, Charlton. If marijuana was affecting these players, they only suspend them for what they do off the field with it.
Yeah.
They don't suspend them for what they do on the field with it, so it hasn't injured anybody's performance who's been suspended when you realistically look at it.
Yeah.
They're getting suspended for usage off the field because they failed the drug test. Players that are taking marijuana and that have used it in the past have used it like majority-wise for purposes.
Yeah.
They do it for functionality. You try waking up with a back where you can't walk, with a knee that's swollen twice the size of a normal knee, looking like a volleyball.
Yeah.
With an ankle so big you can't even get it into a shoe.
Yeah.
Okay, broken fingers, dislocated elbows, broken ribs. Players want this to relieve pain, Jonathan. This is what all it's about.
Yeah.
If the American government in certain states can say there is no harm that is coming from marijuana, and those states have NFL football teams, Jonathan, how can you suspend a player who lives and works in a state where marijuana is legal? Jonathan, let's look at California.
Yeah.
Let's look at Colorado. Vegas has just become legal, so that's Nevada. We look around at several other states in the U.S. that has it on the books
Yeah.
as far as becoming legal. The state of Washington. So we have multiple NFL teams that operate in states where marijuana is legal.
Yeah.
Now they can always receive a contact high. They don't have to smoke it directly.
Yeah.
They can sit in an enclosed room talking with people that are utilizing marijuana, and he will test positive. So you're going to suspend a player who was not directly using the substance.
Yeah.
Because he was around people that are.
Well, Big C,
Terrible road to try to sled up, Charles.
that's a very good point. I'm glad we brought it up yesterday, and I see it's all over the papers today. But I do want to say, if there were 100 deaths caused every day by marijuana use, I'm sure they'd crack down on it. We know tobacco causes cancer. Yeah.
All over the news. Look how many deaths in America are caused from tobacco use.
Yeah.
But, it's worse.
Big money.
White America.
Yeah.
Corporate America that makes billions of dollars off the death and the bodies and physical problems of America.
Yeah.
Opioid is run by white corporate America.
Yeah.
It manipulates and extorts other Americans and makes addicts. Now think about it. When you're on opioids, the penal form, Charlie,
Yeah.
and you no longer can get a prescription, you know what the next alternative you have?
What's that?
Heroin, Charlie. You go to heroin. When you find heroin on the street, that's the only thing that's going to keep you nothing. You can find marijuana anywhere, so you're not going to go from marijuana to heroin.
Yeah, that's a. Well, I'm glad we were ahead of the curve on that because we've got to keep people healthy. Big C, back in the day, there's a promoter by the name of Drew Bondini Brown. He was always right-hand man. He had a slogan called Rumble, Young Man Rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe? Yep. Yeah, like last year. Yeah. Well, Big C, that's very good, and we always look forward to it, as we always tell you every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Follow Big C Sports on the iHeart Radio Network, the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. We always want to tell you, there's never any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman in trouble, just call 911 because no one should have to go to that garbage all on their own. And as we always tell you, on every Big C Sports program, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.